Dr. Nexus Prime pressed his face closer to the observation window, his 4 eyes widening with fascination as he watched the human children below. The recreation module, a perfect replica of what the humans called a playground, buzzed with activity. His outer membrane quivered with excitement. This was the breakthrough they'd been waiting for. Vital signs stable across all subjects, Zephyr reported from her monitoring station, her tentacles dancing across the holographic displays. Cortisol levels within expected parameters, the soft blue glow of the screens reflected off her iridescent scales. Quantum, hunched over his own array of instruments, added brain activity showing interesting spikes in the prefrontal cortex, particularly in subjects 3 and 7. His crystalline antennae twitched as he processed the incoming data streams. They appear to be innovating. Dr. Prime nodded, making a mental note to highlight this in his report to the Galactic Research Council. After centuries of studying Earth's dominant species from afar, the Council had finally approved their request for direct observation of human young. The stakes couldn't be higher. Understanding human adaptability could be the key to solving their own species' evolutionary crisis. Below them, 12 children, carefully selected from different regions of Earth, played in what they believed was an advanced international summer camp. The truth, of course, was far more complex. Each child represented a different aspect of human potential that fascinated the alien researchers. Maya Rodriguez, age 11, currently leading a group in what appeared to be an improvised game involving complex rules she was making up on the spot, had shown remarkable leadership abilities since arrival. Her dark curls bounced as she gestured enthusiastically, explaining something to the others. Dr. Prime had been particularly impressed by her ability to bridge cultural gaps between the other children. Lucas Thompson, 12, hung back at the edges of the group, his quiet observation belying a sharp analytical mind. Earlier that week, he had already deduced that certain malfunctions in the recreation module were actually planned tests. While this concerned Dr. Prime, it also confirmed why they had selected him. His pattern recognition abilities were exceptional. The youngest of the group, 8-year-old twins Aisha and Zara Chen Martinez, moved in perfect synchronization as they navigated the playground equipment. Their hybrid vigor, a result of their mixed Earth heritage, produced fascinating genetic readings that had Quantum constantly recalibrating his instruments. Other notable subjects included Benjamin Okoro, 10, whose emotional intelligence scores had broken their measurement scales, Sarah Kim, 11, who had already attempted to reprogram one of their monitoring devices using nothing but a juice box and spare parts from a toy, and Dmitry Volkov, 9, whose physical adaptability in varying gravitational conditions had proven remarkable. Dr. Prime Zephyr called out softly, "The Council is requesting an update on Project Genesis implications." He turned away from the window reluctantly. The Council's impatience was understandable. Their own species' birth rates had been declining for millennia. If human children could adapt so readily to new environments, perhaps studying them could reveal the key to their own survival. But as he watched Maya successfully integrate a reluctant Lucas into the group's activities, he wondered if they were missing something even more important about human nature. "Tell them," he said finally, "that the preliminary results exceed all expectations." But also he paused, choosing his words carefully, "Inform them that we may need to reevaluate our basic assumptions about individual versus group adaptability." The children's laughter echoed through the observation chamber as they played, unaware that their simple games might hold the key to another species' survival. The first warning came as a subtle fluctuation in the ambient lighting. Barely noticeable to anyone but Quantum's sensitive crystalline antennae. He straightened at his monitoring station, the movement catching Dr. Nexus Prime's attention. "Solar radiation levels are spiking," Quantum reported, his tentacles dancing across multiple holographic displays. "The storm's magnitude, it's unlike anything in our records." Before Dr. Prime could respond, a violent tremor shook the observation deck. The usual symphony of humming machinery stuttered, replaced by an ominous silence. Emergency lights flickered to life, bathing everything in a deep crimson glow. Primary power grid failing. Zephyr's scales shifted to a pale blue of distress as she worked frantically at her station. Switching to auxiliary, no response from auxiliary systems. Dr. Prime's outer membrane rippled with concern as he watched the temperature displays 20 deg C, 18 deg Z, 15 deg C. The numbers dropped with alarming speed. Through the observation window, frost began creeping across the edges, its crystalline patterns a beautiful but terrifying harbinger of the crisis unfolding. "Initiate emergency protocol Delta 7, he ordered, all 4 eyes fixed on the recreation module below where the human children were gathering. Priority 1 must be maintaining life support in their quarters. Quantum's antennae vibrated with increasing agitation. Unable to comply, Doctor. The system's locked us out completely. Nothing's responding to override commands. Another violent shake rocked the facility. Several monitoring stations erupted in showers of sparks, their screens going dark. The temperature continued its relentless decline 12 degc cc 10 degc 8 degs. Get me external communications. Dr. Prime's usual calm demeanor cracked as his membrane pulsed with barely contained panic. We need immediate evacuation support. But the solar storm had created an impenetrable electromagnetic barrier around the facility. Every communication channel was dead, leaving them completely isolated. Zephyr's monitoring equipment showed the human children's vital signs beginning to show signs of stress. Their temperature tolerance would soon be pushed beyond safe limits. As system after system cascaded into failure, Dr. Prime felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. How had all their fail-safes failed simultaneously? The Galactic Research Council had demanded redundancy after redundancy, yet somehow every backup was failing. Then Quantum noticed something strange in the power fluctuation patterns. "Doctor," he called out, his crystalline structure refracting the emergency lights in agitated patterns. "These fluctuations in the lower levels, they're not random." Through the increasingly frost-covered window, movement caught their attention. Subject 7 Sarah Kim had somehow gained access to one of the auxiliary terminals. Before their astonished eyes, power signatures began stabilizing in the children's quarter. "She's rerouting emergency power through the maintenance subsystem." Zephyr's scales shifted to a pattern indicating surprise and confusion. "Using redundant pathways we didn't even know were compatible." Dr. Prime's membrane pulsed with sudden understanding. The device Sarah had been playing with last week, she hadn't been trying to break it. She'd been learning how their systems worked. The emergency lights stabilized, switching from red to a steady amber. Below, the other children were organizing with remarkable efficiency. Maya Rodriguez directed smaller groups, while Lucas Thompson worked at another terminal, apparently following Sarah's instructions. The Chen Martinez twins, Aisha and Zara, moved between groups with perfect synchronization, relaying information without any apparent communication technology. As the facility shuddered again, less violently this time, Dr. Prime watched in amazement. While his own staff had been paralyzed by the cascading failures, the children had instantly adapted to the crisis. They weren't panicking, they were problem-solving. Everything he ordered, his voice quiet but intense. "The Council needs to understand. We thought we were testing their adaptability, but we've been asking the wrong questions entirely." The temperature began to slowly rise as emergency systems came back online one by one. Through the clearing frost on the window, Dr. Prime watched the children work with seamless cooperation. Their different skills, Sarah's technical intuition, Maya's leadership, Lucas's analytical mind, the twins' perfect coordination had come together in a crisis to achieve what should have been impossible. "It's not just about survival," he murmured, his membrane rippling with the excitement of discovery. "It's about collaboration. They don't just adapt individually. They adapt as a collective." As the crisis subsided, Dr. Prime knew that today's failure had actually revealed their greatest success. The children hadn't just survived their test, they had completely transcended its parameters. And in doing so, they might have just shown his species a path to their own survival that none of them had considered before. Dr. Nexus Prime had expected chaos. Instead, he watched with all 4 eyes widened in astonishment as Aiden Park, one of their quietest subjects, took command of the situation with remarkable composure. "We need to know exactly what we have," the 11-year-old announced to the gathered children, his voice carrying across the recreation module with unexpected authority. "Ashley, can you handle inventory?" Ashley Martinez, usually buried in her digital games, straightened up immediately. "On it. I've been keeping track of the supply deliveries in my notebook. I can cross-reference with what's actually in storage." Dr. Prime's membrane quivered as he watched Ashley quickly organize 3 other children into teams, her usual nervous energy channeled into methodical efficiency. She'd created a simple but effective system. One team counted, another verified, and the third logged everything into one of the facility's auxiliary data pads she'd somehow managed to access. Dr. Quantum called from his monitoring station, his crystalline antennae vibrating with excitement. "You need to see this. The children are repurposing the playground equipment." Indeed, they had transformed their recreational space into an impromptu command center. The spiral slide had become a natural amphitheater where Aiden could address everyone. The monkey bars, with their perfect grid pattern, were being used to map out the facility's accessible areas, with different colored hair ties marking important locations. "Fascinating," Dr. Prime murmured, moving closer to the observation window. "They're creating a visual representation of the facility's layout, but how did they?" His voice trailed off as he watched Lucas Thompson, their pattern recognition prodigy, working with the twins to create a makeshift pulley system using jump ropes and the swing set. They were using it to transport supplies from the storage area without having to make multiple trips up and down the access ramp. "Their spatial awareness of the facility is remarkable," Quantum noted, his admiration evident in the way his crystalline structure refracted light in complex patterns. "They've been paying attention to far more than we realized." Aiden had positioned himself at the top of the slide, tablet in hand, coordinating the various teams with the confidence of a seasoned commander. "Maya, how's the communication system coming along?" Maya Rodriguez, who had been working with Sarah Kim near the climbing dome, looked up with a grin. "Almost there. Sarah figured out how to link our tablets through the auxiliary power grid. Once Ashley's team finishes their count, we can sync everyone's data in real time." Dr. Prime's membrane rippled with shock. "They've created their own internal network? Using our auxiliary systems?" "Not just that," Quantum replied, his antennae twitching as he analyzed the data streams. "They're using the playground's metal structure as a makeshift antenna to boost the signal strength. The electrical conductivity of the equipment combined with the residual power in the auxiliary grid, it's actually quite brilliant." Below, Ashley's inventory team had finished their initial count. "Aiden," she called out, her voice clear and confident. "We have enough emergency rations for 18 days if we stretch them. Water recycling is still functioning at 60% capacity. Medical supplies are fully stocked, and we found some emergency thermal blankets in the lower storage unit." "Good work," Aiden responded, making notes on his tablet. "Benjamin, how's the temperature regulation coming along?" Benjamin Okoro, who had been quietly working with the ventilation system, gave a thumbs up. "The maintenance tunnels Sarah found are perfect. We can use them to redirect warm air from the functional systems to the areas that need it most. Dimitri's small enough to help me adjust the manual vents." Dr. Prime watched as 9-year-old Dmitry Volkov fearlessly navigated the narrow maintenance passages, following Benjamin's instructions to adjust the airflow. The two boys had developed their own system of knocks and taps to communicate through the walls. Dr. Quantum said softly, his crystalline structure pulsing with gentle light, "I believe we may have miscategorized these subjects from the beginning. We've been so focused on measuring their individual adaptability that we failed to anticipate their capacity for collective organization." Indeed, Dr. Prime's membrane shifted to a deep shade of contemplation. Aiden Park's psychological profile indicated introversion and a preference for solitary activities. Nothing suggested this level of leadership ability. Perhaps Quantum suggested, his antennae swaying thoughtfully, our method of evaluation was flawed. We tested them as individuals, but their true strength appears to be in how they complement each other's abilities. Below, Aiden was consulting with Maya and Sarah about expanding their makeshift communication network to try reaching the facility's upper levels. Ashley's team had moved on to organizing the supplies into efficient distribution centers. The twins were teaching other children how to use the pulley system, while Benjamin and Dmitry continued their methodical optimization of the ventilation system. "They've turned a playground into a fully functional emergency response center," Dr. Prime noted, his membrane rippling with something approaching awe. "Not through advanced technology or formal training, but through cooperation and innovative thinking." "Perhaps," Quantum replied, his crystalline structure glowing with warmth, "that is precisely why they will succeed where we might have failed. They don't see limitations, they see possibilities." If someone had told Dr. Nexus Prime that he would be taking notes on emergency protocols from a group of human children, his membrane would have rippled with skepticism. Yet here he was, watching in fascination as 9-year-old Tyler Bennett explained his latest innovation to an eager group of peers. "See, If we connect the power cell from the gaming console to these wires Tyler demonstrated, his small fingers moving with surprising precision, we can use the emergency lighting circuits to carry data signals. It's like making a really big computer network. Sarah Kim, already known for her technical intuition, nodded enthusiastically. And if we link it to the tablets Ashley found in storage, we can create a mesh network throughout the whole facility. Zephyr, monitoring their activities, turned all three eye stalks toward Dr. Prime. Doctor, their adaptation of our technology. It's unprecedented. They're creating solutions we never even considered. The children had transformed their recreational space into an impromptu workshop. The spiral slide, previously just a source of entertainment, now served as an emergency evacuation chute between levels, with Maya Rodriguez organizing teams to test different materials for reducing friction and increasing speed. Tyler's calculations for the optimal descent angle are remarkably accurate, Quantum noted, his crystalline structure pulsing with excitement as he reviewed the data. He's accounting for variables we wouldn't have expected a child to consider. Below, Lucas Thompson was working with the Chen Martinez twins to modify their gaming controllers. They had discovered that the controller's haptic feedback systems could be reprogrammed to transmit simple messages through vibration patterns. In areas where their makeshift network couldn't reach, this tactile communication system proved invaluable. "Look at this," Tyler called out, holding up what appeared to be a makeshift periscope fashioned from broken tablet screens and pieces of the playground's mirror panels. "We can use these to check around corners in the dark sections. The screen's backlight makes it work even better than regular mirrors." Dr. Prime watched as the young inventor demonstrated his creation to Benjamin Okoro, who immediately saw its potential for exploring the facility's maintenance tunnels. The two boys quickly began producing more periscopes, teaching others how to assemble them. "Their resource management is extraordinary," Zephyr observed, her scales shifting to a pattern indicating deep thought. "They're not just creating tools, they're creating systems for teaching others how to make and use them." The innovation wasn't limited to electronics and tools. Dmitry Volkov had discovered that the thermal blankets from the emergency supplies, when combined with the static electricity generated by sliding down the plastic slides, could create temporary illumination. The children were now using this phenomenon to mark emergency paths through darker sections of the facility. Dr. Quantum called out, his antennae vibrating with excitement, "You need to see what they're doing with the playground's sonic dampeners." The dampeners, originally installed to keep the children's play noise at comfortable levels for alien ears, were being repurposed by Tyler and Sarah into a facility-wide communication system. By modifying the frequency and using the gaming console's audio processors, they had created a primitive but effective broadcast network. The most remarkable aspect, Dr. Prime noted, his membrane rippling with admiration, is how they're building upon each other's ideas. Tyler's mechanical insights combine with Sarah's programming knowledge, while Lucas's pattern recognition helps them optimize their systems. Even the younger children were contributing. 6-year-old Emma Chen had discovered that her light-up shoes could be used as emergency markers, leading to a systematic placement of illuminated footwear to mark safe paths throughout the facility. What had seemed like a frivolous fashion choice became an integral part of their survival strategy. "They're not just surviving," Zephyr observed, her scales shifting to a color indicating profound realization. "They're creating a new paradigm for emergency response, one based on creativity and collaboration rather than rigid protocols." Dr. Prime watched as Tyler gathered everyone to explain his latest invention, a method of using the playground's motion sensors to create a primitive but effective security system. The other children listened intently, asking questions and suggesting improvements. Perhaps, Quantum suggested, his crystalline structure glowing softly. "This is why the Council's traditional methods of studying human adaptability have been insufficient. We've been looking for responses that mirror our own technological solutions." When all along, Dr. Prime concluded, his membrane pulsing with the excitement of discovery, their greatest strength lies in their ability to see beyond established systems and create something entirely new. As Tyler led another group in assembling emergency tools from their limited resources, Dr. Prime began composing a new report for the Council. This wasn't just about survival or adaptation anymore. These children were teaching them something far more valuable: the power of unlimited innovation in the face of limited resources. The warning klaxons had finally fallen silent, but the display showing rapidly dropping oxygen levels cast an eerie blue glow across Dr. Nexus Prime's membrane. Every few seconds, another percentage point disappeared: 47%, 46%, 45%. Conventional life support protocols have completely failed, Quantum reported, his crystalline structure dulled with stress. The backup systems are. Save your breath, Maya Rodriguez interrupted, her voice coming clearly through the makeshift communication system. We need to conserve oxygen. Dr. Prime's 4 eyes blinked in succession as he watched the 11-year-old girl take command of the situation below. She had already organized the children into small groups, each stationed at different environmental control nodes throughout their section of the facility. Lucas, what are your readings? Maya's voice was steady, controlled. Oxygen recyclers are at 12% efficiency, Lucas Thompson replied, his fingers flying over a jury-rigged control panel. The solar storm damaged most of the external intake valves, but he paused. I think I see a pattern in the system failures. Zephyr's scales shifted to a deep purple of concern. At this rate, they have less than 2 hours of breathable air. But the children weren't panicking. Instead, they had entered a state of focused cooperation that defied all of Dr. Prime's research into human-child psychology. They weren't supposed to be capable of this level of systematic problem-solving under extreme stress. Sarah, Tyler, Maya called out, I need your teams to concentrate on the East Section recyclers. That's where Lucas spotted the pattern. Everyone else, minimal movement, shallow breaths. Dr. Prime watched as the children adapted to their roles with remarkable efficiency. Sarah Kim's technical knowledge combined with Tyler Bennett's mechanical intuition as they worked on the recyclers. The Chen Martinez twins maintained communication between teams using their minimal oxygen sign language. Even the younger children stayed calm, following Maya's breathing instructions without question. Dr. Quantum's antennae trembled with realization. They're not just working together, they're actively redesigning our life support systems. Indeed, Sarah and Tyler had discovered that by reversing the flow in certain damaged recyclers and linking them to the still functioning units, they could create a cascade effect that improved efficiency. It wasn't in any manual, wasn't part of any protocol, but it was working: 15% efficiency, 18%, 23%. Their approach completely contradicts our emergency procedures, Zephyr noted, her scales shifting to a pattern indicating deep confusion. All our protocols emphasize isolating damaged systems, not intentionally linking them. Maya's voice came through again, slightly breathless but determined. Benjamin, Dimitri, we need you to redirect airflow from the upper levels. Use the maintenance tunnels we mapped earlier. Dr. Prime's membrane rippled with sudden understanding. They're creating a closed-loop system, using the facility's architecture itself as part of the recycling process. The oxygen level display had stabilized at 43%, not rising yet but no longer falling. Below, Maya was consulting with Lucas, their heads bent over his pattern analysis. Sarah and Tyler's teams had moved to the West Section recyclers, applying their successful modifications to the remaining systems. Doctor, Quantum said softly, his crystalline structure beginning to regain its luster, I believe we need to fundamentally reevaluate our understanding of human crisis response. These children aren't just surviving our protocol's failure, they're proving those protocols were flawed from the start. The oxygen efficiency reading ticked up another percentage point. Maya allowed herself a small smile before returning to coordinating the teams. They weren't safe yet, but they had found their path forward. Dr. Prime's membrane shifted to the deep blue of profound realization. Perhaps he mused, that's precisely what we were meant to learn. Not how well they could follow our systems, but how effectively they could transcend them. Doctor. Nexus Prime stood before the holographic display of the Galactic Research Council, his membrane shimmering with an intensity that reflected the magnitude of his discoveries. Behind him, through the observation window, the children were conducting their own review of their emergency response systems, led by Maya Rodriguez and Tyler Bennett. Honored council members, he began. I stand before you to present findings that will fundamentally alter our understanding of not only human potential, but our own approach to adaptation and survival. The council chambers fell silent as Dr. Prime transmitted the compiled data from the crisis. The emergency protocols developed by the children had not only saved their lives, but had created entirely new paradigms for crisis response. What you're seeing, he continued, gesturing to the scrolling data, is not just successful survival strategy. It represents a complete revolution in how we approach adaptive challenges. The statistical models showed irrefutable evidence the children's innovative solutions had improved system efficiency by 47% beyond the aliens' best protocols. Sarah Kim's reprogramming of their communication systems, combined with Tyler's mechanical modifications, had created hybrid technologies that their own engineers were still struggling to fully comprehend. But the true breakthrough Dr. Prime emphasized, his four eyes focusing intensely on the council, lies not in the technical solutions themselves, but in how they were achieved. He played footage of the Crisis Maya coordinating teams with intuitive efficiency, Lucas Thompson's pattern recognition leading to critical insights, the Chen Martinez twins' development of resource distribution systems, and Benjamin Okoro's emotional intelligence keeping group dynamics stable under extreme pressure. We approached this study with the assumption that human adaptability was an individual trait to be measured and quantified. We were wrong. His membrane rippled with the excitement of scientific discovery. Their true adaptive capability lies in their collective intelligence, their ability to combine different perspectives and skills in ways we never imagined possible. Quantum stepped forward, his crystalline structure gleaming as he presented additional data. The children didn't just solve problems, they redefined them. Where we saw system failures, they saw opportunities for innovation. Where we sought to isolate damaged components, they created integrated solutions that exceeded original performance parameters. The council members' bioluminescence flickered with intense interest as they processed the implications. One of them spoke, their harmonic tones resonating through the chamber. You suggest this requires a complete reevaluation of our species' approach to survival. Yes, Dr. Prime responded firmly. Our rigid adherence to established protocols nearly proved fatal. These children showed us that true resilience comes not from perfect systems, but from the ability to transcend them when necessary. Through the window, they could see Aiden Park teaching younger children how to maintain their improved life support systems, while Sarah and Tyler documented their innovations for future reference. What had begun as an emergency response had evolved into a sustainable new methodology. Our species has spent millennia perfecting our technology, refining our protocols, seeking survival through perfect system design, Dr. Prime concluded, his membrane pulsing with emotion. These children have shown us that we've been looking in the wrong direction. The key to survival isn't in creating better systems, it's in fostering the kind of adaptability that allows us to see beyond systems entirely. The council chambers erupted in harmonic discussions as the implications became clear. This wasn't just about human potential anymore, it was about the future of their own species, about learning to embrace uncertainty as an opportunity for growth rather than a threat to be controlled. As Dr. Prime concluded his presentation, he glanced back at the children, now engaged in teaching each other their various skills and innovations. In their simple playground games and creative solutions, they had unknowingly provided answers to questions his species had struggled with for generations. Perhaps he mused, his membrane shifting to the deep blue of profound understanding. The greatest revelation is not what we taught them, but what they taught us about the true nature of adaptation itself.